Good evening, Wizards, and welcome to episode 36 of Wizard Wednesdays. Now, we have had a phenomenal week in the markets across many different pairs and many different trades. Now, before we actually get into the overall analysis, we're going to be jumping straight into the analysis. But before that, just wanted to mention a few key pointers such as XRP, Ether, LTC, and of course BTC as well. Across the four pairs, there's been some beautiful trading activity that's been going on. We've caught a phenomenal amount of movements that ranges from the breakout to the upside over here to the pullback on the downside over here as well. We've been catching all kinds of different movements, and judging from the current price action and judging from what's actually going on within the markets right now, things are looking very, very promising to absolutely blow through the roof to the upside. So getting into that, let me just open up all of these charts quickly just so you can see an overall bias that every single pair is pretty much matching the same price action. We've seen a bit more bearish activity from Litecoin, to be honest with you, but when it comes to Bitcoin, then to be honest with you, it is looking a bit more promising. So first things first, let's actually start off with LT. Actually, no, we'll start off with Bitcoin first. I believe that's probably the best way to do this. And the first thing we should be doing is going over to the likes of the weekly or even the daily time frame to get a little bit of an understanding on where the next potential move can go. Now, please ignore this. That was me just getting the colors ready. But what you can see over here and within this overall section is a potential reversal to the downside. Now, whilst many people are identifying this potential downside movement as some form of correction or potential move leading lower, I do believe before we actually see the next move to the downside, I believe on an intraday level, if I actually drop down to the daily, or even when we get to the 4 hour in a minute, if we actually drop down to this time zone here, I do believe there's just one more push within the market. Even if it's up to the $9,200 region, I am anticipating some form of upside breakout to fulfill these regions over here before continuing lower to the downside. And from there onwards, I believe once we see BTC go lower, the final floor right now, as I mentioned in the Telegram with the voice note, happened in that particular moment was BTC rejected the $8,000 region. And because it held so steady, again, I have just changed the candlesticks. I've just switched over to a new recording. So what you can see over here is a crossover from what is actually going on from the weekly historical levels. You can see the rejections very clearly. You've got the higher highs as well and the higher lows. Although we are overall bearish, especially from a longer term perspective, you can see this rejection here in particular is looking rather promising. So understanding that we've seen all of these weeks worth of candlestick action, we've broken through resistance, we've rejected. If we get rid of this intraday level for 1 second and look at the higher time frames around the $10,000 region and then extend this over to here instead, you can see there is a perfect match of exactly everything that's going on. You can see the breakthrough of support, you can see the retest over here. So it's almost inevitable at some point we will be seeing a potential push higher. This is all I'm really looking at for the time being. This is all I'm really looking for. If I expand this out a little bit more as well and drag down the Fibonacci tools to this particular region. So you've got two Fibonacci's within a Fibonacci. So you can understand that where we currently are around the 61.8% region does line up quite nicely with some further upside targets of around $12,000 all the way up there if you actually use the extensions. But the majority of our focus and the importance is actually on the 78.6 at the $8,000 region. If you look at this exact level over here and look at how it's maintained with prior support and the shoulders and the head and the potential shoulders, you can very quickly understand that by understanding the cruciality of this level, what could be happening from here onwards. If I was to even go from here to there, you can see the alignment with the 50, again, ignore that for a second, the 61.8 around this region and even the $10,000 region of the 78.6. What we're looking at overall for BTC, just like every other pair, is a nice upside movement, a nice breakout to the upside to fulfill this region, to fulfill this level, reject, and then pull over towards the downside. And when you actually put this all into perspective, when you understand what's going on in the bigger picture, you can see the break, the rejection, and the guidelines over here. So what we could essentially be seeing is that perfect mirror pattern. If I get rid of that very quickly as well, what you would understand is going on in this particular moment in time is a movement that could be looking a lot like this. So the break, the pullback, the rejection to this zone, and then boom, you start blowing through the roof. So we could be catching a nice consecutive trade from this setup as well. So there's a lot of nice things going on within the market overall. So going over to the 4-hour time frame. Again, the Telegram updates as well should be keeping you all in perfect synchronization with this. And if I'm just to dip down a little bit lower into that intraday outlook and understand what's going on here as well, we are just being a bit cautious of any potential wick fishing down here. But all in all, this could be very, very promising in terms of rejection, holding, hold one more time, counter trend break, and from there onwards it's going to be phenomenal. Once you break this trend line, we may not even see the rejection, we may just rocket straight through, fulfill these targets however high they may be. And again, as I have mentioned, no take profits are really needed, just in case we actually do see that little bit of a push higher. That would be a beautiful scenario to work out, and in all honesty, if all of the pairs could mirror that movement, then it's going to be a very profitable week. So weekly perspective on that same level, and the daily as well. We'll get to the daily first. You can see the rejections around this zone. We've held this region, we've come down, we've just tapped that support one more time before potentially rocketing higher. So dropping down to the 3-hour or the 4-hour as well before we get to that weekly one more time, just to give you a bit more of a perspective and an outlook on what we're actually witnessing right now. So let's drop down to, actually no, we'll do the 30 minute. 30 minutes, a bit more of a rarer outlook. You can see overall, despite how we are moving and looking like we're pulling down, you've got this region over here which we have now broken through, and we're currently just coming down and rejecting. So I do not want to overload you with zones, but just giving you a bit of an outlook on this overall resistance. It's consolidated, and we're just continuously coming back and forth from this level, and this little intraday region here could be the final little level you just tap before blowing through the roof. So do pay special attention to that, please, and do understand this could be a very large phenomenal breakout. If I do go back to the weekly as well, you can see with that perfect rejection over there, all we're really looking for all in all is just that little rejection, that little pullback. Come round and find your ground. We do not need to go the whole way higher. We can very easily just see a little bit of a push. We're looking at around $500, $400 in the the smaller case scenario, but obviously we could be seeing a move extending up to almost $1,000 if possible. So putting this all into perspective, you can see there is a fairly large overall bearish picture. When you understand from the weekly as well how we are descending, this could lead us to that overall movement to the $6,000 region, but it's not necessarily something we need to focus on for the time being until we see 8,000 come through again. So just stay focused on watching the likes of, go back to the daily one more time, just look more promising and understand that we're waiting for this to come through first. And once we get to this region, if we do, from there we can sit there, we can get our heads together, we can dictate and understand what this may potentially be doing next. So all in all, I think it's looking very promising. The Ether trade as well is just booming. So we just need this thing to carry on, continue rocketing higher, and every single setup is going to be a winner by the end of the week if we just break through these final levels of resistance. So moving forward, had a little bit of a screen recording error there, quickly resolved that. So what I was saying, guys, we're looking at the downside over here. We're looking to fulfill the $8,000 region one final time before liftoff. So regardless of what happens overall, we are looking at some form of breakout to the upside, correction, retest, fulfill this region. And if it obviously does maintain, all that means is from that point onwards, we have found our final floor for 2019, and price will absolutely rocket from here onwards. All we need to do is maintain this level after one final retest. Judging from the price action, it's a very large area open for interest. So looking at a push higher, fulfill that movement, take profits, and look to potentially short, just as we did on the 4-hour time frame over here. Again, nothing too drastic, nothing too major, but looking at these movements overall and looking at how this has been playing out, you can understand there's been some huge movements, some huge downside movements, and we've managed to capture them all. So if we can see a similar situation play out on the larger time frames, which the lower time frames could be teasing right now as a major possibility. So we need to take that into consideration as well and understand this could all be coming through very, very nicely. So if I open up XRP, we have a little look at XRP right now. Things are looking great. I'm loving the price action on this particular pair. The weekly time frame, just to put this into perspective, does look a little bit bearish. I can understand that. I mean, judging from the price action right now, all kinds of wick activity around this region. So if I just show you this in a bit more perspective on what's going on, you can see the rejection, the shoulders, the head, the other potential shoulders. If I was to get out the Fibonacci tool very, very quickly, on this particular setup, what you would be seeing come through is the likes, again, I'll tidy these up when possible, the 61.8 and the 78.6. So we do have to be a bit cautious of that potential downside possibility. We've also got resistance here, which has broken through. It was now support, it's turned resistance yet again. There is a little bit of confusion with that pair in particular, but looking at the overall bigger picture, we are holding that 27 cents region quite nicely. And the way I see things going for XRP, very simply, again, this Wizard Wednesdays is more of a particular trade update because nothing has really changed. We're simply here to review the markets. I'm giving you more of a trade update in this particular episode. So understanding we've got some trend lines forming over here, but also on the 4-hour, we've also got the breakout here. Now, there's many different ways to draw this. It's completely down to yourselves. But all in all, you can understand a breakthrough of this region would lead us straight back to the psychological resistance level of 30 cents. Now, going back to the weekly to put this in an even clearer perspective for you to all understand, what you will notice is when we initially broke through this zone, I did say this was a false retest and we would need one more to come through. The real retest has come through. We've now rejected and boom, we're looking at a huge possibility to come through, reject this region once more, see the same sort of downside movement towards the 25 to 24 cents region before price begins to absolutely bolster towards the upside targets. So in perspective and looking at this overall, XRP, the exact same principles. We need to break this trend line, which I believe should be coming through shortly. And then from there, we're looking at a pretty open road towards 0.292 and also the 30 cents region. Now, moving on to Ether for another update and to provide you with an update on this trade. Ether's been the favorite of all the pairs for this particular setup. And the reason being for that is because of how well it's been performing. Of course, on a daily perspective, it doesn't necessarily look as larger, or it doesn't really look as promising as the other pairs. But honestly, once we start marking out some zones, you can see very, very quickly how well this actually looks. Now, marking this out over here, you've got the resistance turned support, holding incredibly well. You've got all forms of trend lines over here from every single angle. So we have got a nice upside target in mind of around $200. And now that I actually plot the trend line open, you can see very easily now a simple break above this level, and even around the level we've already broken, it would be a rocket ship towards this region over here and potentially a little bit higher, touching that $205 region as well. Now, imagine that does come through and imagine things look even better and even more promising than this. What would happen from there onwards is obviously an inevitable retest of around $190 to $180. But more importantly, just like BTC and XRP, you've got this downside region over here. You've got the wick activity over here. Just how the other pairs have been moving, we could be seeing an exact mirror movement of exactly what's going on. The support level, the rejection, the third rejection, and then boom, we start rocketing above that $200 to $300 threshold. But the only way we're going to be doing that is to break this trend line. And I do believe we're going to retest it, come down first, and then we start rocketing all the way to the upside as well. Now, shifting over to LTC, another similar theory, another similar practice. We're looking right now at a huge trend line that's technically been broken. You can consider this from many different levels and many different perspectives, but looking at it from this way, from the most recent swing, or even from there, we've already broken, so there is a promising breakout to the upside. I did manually close the LTC position for one particular reason, and that's because of the overall bearish price action. We have now got, though, however, to show you this overall. I'm still not going to enter this because I've got a trade running, but we've broken resistance, we broke through here after all those rejections, came through as support, came through again. You've now got the 3-pin pattern. The 3-pin pattern is a very strong and very famous candle formation within Forex, stocks, and cryptocurrencies. And understanding there's a small one there as well. But more importantly, this daily time frame says it all. The 2 candle closures at the same level, the wick fishing in the middle. All we need from here onwards is another bolster of a movement to break one of these intraday levels, such as a counter trend or whatever it may be. We've seen the same pattern once. You go down, you come back up, and you go down again. And then boom, we could be seeing that movement towards $70 to $80 as well. But the same theory applies for the entire market. We are looking at potentially plummeting after seeing this next surge. And this next surge, if you look at how convenient this is, again, another head and shoulders on the LTC time frame. You can see on the daily, the wick, the head, and the next potential wick. So if this can come through now, then we are looking like a very successful week ahead of us. So let me just put this into perspective a little bit more. Just zoom out one more time on that weekly as well, just to show you what's been going on BTC. So upon this rejection over here, when you actually put the $9,000 region into perspective, it's actually minuscule. And when we're trading these intraday moves, you can make a lot of money off very small moves from the longer time frame. Understanding we use the longer time frames to actually do the majority of this analysis, you can see this wick region here. When we are trying to catch this long movement, it could simply be, once you drop down now, it could simply be a rejection of this level, just to retest these wicks one more time. Again, look, broken through, rejected, come through, push all the way up, see a nice little movement towards this zone over here, and even potentially towards the $10,000 region, as you saw from the prior Fibonacci's as well. So all in all, looking at this movement here, you've got the broken resistance. Just add another level for the sake of adding levels. You can see a break. I'll add this from the bodies to be more precise. Body break, breakthrough, rejection, potential curvature. We're maintaining the 8760 to 8770, even 8750 region quite nicely. And we're looking at that movement to then push us down and start blowing through the roof. So I'm looking forward to this. I hope things come out to plan. But overall, it's looking like a very profitable week is ahead of us. So hopefully by the weekend, we'll all be cheersing our champagne glasses and celebrating our newfound profits.